Many of the quality, food safety, and occupational health and safety issues we face at work are linked to people not giving instructions or people not following the instructions. If a business is going to run smoothly, all the critical jobs must be clearly defined and documented. When we deal with quality, food safety, and worker safety, we cannot leave people wondering about what steps to follow to do a good job. In this video, I will explain the process I follow to document work instructions. But even before we get to that, I want to address a question that several people have asked me over the years. And the question is, what is the difference between a procedure and a work instruction? In practice, it is not important what we call a document. If you want to call all your documents procedures, or standard operating procedures, or work instructions, that's perfectly okay. What matters is that you communicate exactly what is expected of the team and what is the best way to meet those expectations. But if you still want a simple way to separate procedures from work instructions, one way to do this is to consider how specific is the information contained in the document. If you want to explain in general terms how a whole section, department, or function works, then you can call that document a procedure. For example, you could write a procedure for the plant propagation department, including the responsibilities of different people, the tools and equipment that are used in that department, the acceptable methods, what measurements are carried out to keep the section working as planned, and a reference to other documents that explain in more detail how certain critical jobs are meant to be performed. Also, the procedure explains how all the different jobs carried out in the department are coordinated to produce the results the business needs. For this reason, procedures are normally used by supervisors and managers, as these documents contain the information needed to run their departments. Work instructions, on the other hand, provide a detailed description of the steps that must be followed to complete one specific job. Work instructions are used by technicians, operators, and field workers to complete specific tasks that must be performed exactly the same way all the time if we expect to achieve consistent results. Now that we understand the main difference between procedures and work instructions, let me discuss now how to actually develop and write a work instruction. Once you select the work instruction you want to document, write down the answers to the following questions. What is the objective of the job? Who is going to do it? Any qualifications, knowledge, or experience needed? Any equipment needed? Any potential danger to the operator? Any chance of damage to the product or equipment? What are the results we want? How often should the job be checked? By whom? What steps must be followed to complete the job? In what order? What is the output? What is done with the output? Any cleaning needed after the job is completed? How? Any records that need to be kept? Out of all these questions, the one that will demand more work is what steps must be followed and in what order. We don't normally think in sequential order when we explain something. We begin the explanation and then we realize there is one step that needs to be completed before everything else we just explained. One way to avoid this challenge is to use a flowchart to move the steps around until the sequential order is correct. Let me give you an example. In this case, the steps in the flowchart are presented in the correct order, but if some of the information was not in sequential order, we could easily see the steps that would need to be moved and where. For experienced people, a flowchart like this one may be sufficient to complete the job. You may want to keep the flowchart to assist these more experienced operators. But the flowchart does not include some important details that may be critical to completing the job successfully. If you want a new operator to learn how to do something correctly, you must provide all the information needed during training. And a detailed work instruction will ensure all the relevant information is provided and nothing critical is missed. After you have prepared the flowchart, you are ready to begin writing the work instruction. And because it is a work instruction, you need to use imperative verbs. Imperative verbs are used when you want to express an order or command. For example, this is a list of imperative verbs: open, close, mix, turn, pour, fill, put, move. I think you get the idea. Don't feel guilty about using imperative verbs in your work instruction. If you put together an IKEA piece of furniture, you don't want poetry. You want correct and clear instructions so you can complete the job correctly and as efficiently as possible. Imperative verbs help us provide that clear communication. The following is an example of a work instruction I have prepared using the information from this greenhouse guide and situations I just made up. So please do not use these work instructions in real life. It is only meant as an example of how to develop and write work instructions at work. Step 1. Ask the supervisor for the number of plants that will be needed. Step 2. Allow 35% more seeds than the final number of plants. Example, number of plants needed, 1,000. 35% equal 350. Number of seeds needed, 1,350. Step 3. Collect enough propagation blocks to match the number of seeds that will be sown. Example, 1,350. Step 4. Soak the propagation blocks overnight in the complete nutrient solution. Step 5. Check that the nutrient solution is being maintained between 27 and 30 degrees Celsius. Step 6. If the temperature is outside this range, inform the supervisor immediately, etc., etc. Work instructions contain much more information than the flowchart, but as operators gain experience, they will not need to read the work instructions all the time, and they may use the flowchart as a reminder instead. Eventually, experienced operators may not read anything at all, but if the system is not documented, you will see how people begin to forget 1 or 2 steps, or you may see that when new people are being trained, they are not told every single step. That means your system is becoming corrupted, and your business becomes less and less predictable, uniform, and consistent. And I'm sure that is not the place where you want to be.